So I did my top 20 DC heroes. Let's do my top 20 Marvel. And as with the DC list, I'm not including villains that have turned good or dubious, morally gray, sometimes anti-heroes. So as much as I love Magneto, he's not going to be on this list. Starting off at 20 is the Incredible Hulk. There is no denying that the Hulk is one of the greatest creations in all of comic books. And while I enjoy the concept of the Hulk, and while I do enjoy his stories, I don't know if I care about the character as much as I do some of the other characters on this list. Coming in next is going to be Iron Man, and I'm showing him off in my favorite Iron Man armor, which is the modular suit, Model 13. And mainly I like this because, of course, the Iron Man cartoon back in the 90s. And I'm going to be straight with you. I like Tony a lot because of nostalgia, because of growing up with him, with that TV show and with the comics at the time. And I generally prefer Silver Age and Bronze Age and early 90s Tony as opposed to what he is now. But I still dig the character. Coming in next is Miles Morales. Miles is one of the most relatable and cool characters out there, and he's great for new readers to get into. I think he has the better of the two Spider-Man suits between him and Peter, and I generally like that his powers are different than Peter's. The only thing I don't like is I don't think he should be part of the main Marvel Universe. I enjoyed him more when he was the Spider-Man of his world. Coming in next is Rogue, and there's so many things to love about Rogue, right? But Rogue in general is just a cool character with a cool backstory. And I know things have changed over the years, but I always like the idea of her being unable to touch people and how she's coped with that. Of course, there's been character evolutions, but I've always liked Rogue, and I always liked her in the 90s costume. She's had a bunch of costumes throughout the years, but this has always been peak. What a lot of people don't know, because I don't really talk about them that much, I'm a big Fantastic Four fan. And Sue Storm, let me just say, mommy. In my opinion, the most powerful member of the Fantastic Four. Sue is kind of like that glue that holds the whole team together, and I love her for it. Blame Year of the Collector for this, but I gotta put Spider-Woman in there. I think Spider-Woman is not only a really badass character, but she has a really cool personality to her and backstory that goes with her also. I also like the fact that she has a spider-ish mantle, but she's not directly or necessarily have to be connected to Spider-Man. She is her own character. She can stand out on her own 2 feet. As you guys can tell, I'm a big X-Men fan, and I love Bobby. I think Iceman is one of the coolest X-Men out there. From his powers to his aesthetic looks to everything that goes into the character, Iceman is just peak. Kitty Pryde is low-key one of my favorite all-time X-Men. I think she is just amazing. From her powers and her overall character growth to her leading the X-Men in X-Men Gold, Kitty Pryde is just awesome. And frankly, I think she has one of the best X-Men suits. It's very simple, but it just looks great. And coming in next is none other than Colossus. I love Colossus. The concept of the big giant metal man who just tears through things, but is kind of gentle at heart. And not just that, but he's rocking the most masculine 80s comic book costume that you could ever rock. While not as developed as some of the other characters on this list, I still think Colossus is really cool, and I've always enjoyed him on the X-Men. And right above him is going to be Nightcrawler. Nightcrawler is probably one of the most dynamic, interesting, and has one of the coolest personalities out of not only the X-Men, but I would say throughout Marvel. He's low-key a slept-on character, awesome powers, and the themes that go behind him are just great. And again, fantastic costume, fantastic aesthetic design. I don't know if you noticed, but I like the X-Men. And of course, my boy Cyclops has to be there. And while this isn't my favorite Cyclops suit, I had to use this artwork because this is just iconic. What I think is really cool by Cyclops is he really subverts your impression of what Cyclops is supposed to be. Like when I was watching him back in the 90s on the cartoon, I thought he was like a stick up his ass, goody two shoes. And while Cyclops is a good person and he cares about mutant kind, Cyclops is also a bit of a maverick. He does things by the beat of his own drum, and that sometimes can get him in trouble. And that's something cool. The next person on this list from the Fantastic Four is Mr. Fantastic. I think Mr. Fantastic is just such a interesting character. First of all, I really like intelligent characters, so him being the most intelligent person in all of Marvel is, of course, a standout. But I also think he's interesting because of his personality. I don't know if they meant to or not, but he's almost like he's portrayed on the spectrum a bit, and it makes the character have more depth to him. I really enjoy the storytelling that goes around him. And, of course, stretching powers. Who doesn't love that? The face of Marvel itself, Spider-Man is a favorite for, I think, almost anyone. How can you not love Peter Parker? Other than the fact that his relationships have been garbage and he hasn't had any good stories since the early 2000s, with the exception of Superior Spider-Man. But I love Spider-Man. I'm just not in love with the direction he's been going since One More Day. The only other thing I don't like about him, other than him being cucked out to Mary Jane, would be his costume. This right here is my favorite Spider-Man costume. Sleek, sexy, is not messy with all the webs. Like, goddamn, this is beautiful. Thor, God, I could rag on Thor forever. Thor's a bit of a jobber, but I still love him. I love how they took Norse mythology and turned it into something wholly unique, yet still Norse mythology for Marvel. And Thor just looks like a badass. And in my opinion, he should be the strongest Avenger. I just don't like how they portray him as a jobber, as kind of an idiot half the time. I think he's portrayed better in his own comic than he is on team-up comics. That's just me. But yeah, I fucking dig Thor. Black Panther is a character that I've grown to enjoy more and more throughout the years. And I know both DC and Marvel fans won't like hearing this, but a lot of what Black Panther is reminds me quite a bit of Batman, on how they approach problems, how they handle them, how they're both strategic masterminds, how they both use tech as well as their skill to be able to defeat opponents. There's a lot of comparisons, but I really like the idea of him being a ruler and being a king. What I would really like to see is T'Challa maintain that position and be that influential ruler, become a husband, become a father, and maybe pass the mantle down to the next Black Panther. But yeah, Black Panther has really grown on me over the past few years. Blade is the fucking man. I got introduced to Blade in the Spider-Man animated series, and really, I think most people would agree, the Blade movies are peak. That's really where my love for him has been solidified. I love the concept of the character and the story and the look, the fucking drip. The only thing is for me, Blade doesn't have that many good stories. But he's great. We're into the final four, and we got my girl, Jean Grey. I love Jean. I love everything about her. I think she's overpowered as fuck sometimes, but I don't know, maybe it's redheads. I can't tell you. Jean is just awesome. This is my favorite Jean Grey costume. It's a little over the top. It's super 90s, but I like the fact that Jean is finally staying with us, and she's not dying or come back to life and dying again, and so sporadic with this character, but I still love her to death. My favorite Marvel female hero is going to be Storm. I think Storm is Marvel's best female character. I think she is the most grown and developed and original, and although she's tied heavily to the X-Men, I think she can be slotted into anything and everything. Storm is just amazing. I love her to death. And look at that. This costume is gorgeous. I shit on him a lot, but I fucking love Captain America. He stands for a lot of things I love. Truth, justice, the American way, doing right, being honorable, standing up for liberty. Like, there's a lot of things about Captain America I love. The design is really great, even not a little goofy, but still it's just so comic book and beautiful. And I like Steve Rogers as a person. I really do. Steve is amazing. But my favorite Marvel character is, without a doubt, Wolverine. I've always said this to people. Wolverine is kind of like a hot blonde, right? You know, hot blonde, great body, curves, great chest, blonde hair, great smile. Wolverine, claws coming out of his hands, healing factor, mysterious backstory and loner persona. Like all the stuff that kind of works to that anti-hero / like loner hero stuff. It always worked with Wolverine. But I love everything about him, from his costume to his design to his backstory to how he thinks and how he acts and how he moves. Wolverine has always been an essential part of my comic book history, and he's my favorite Marvel character, bar none. Plain, flat, and simple.